Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Mystery Theory. Today, I will be doing soft spoken with some mouth sounds while I try to quietly chew some gum. If you absolutely hated this far, please exit the video now. I know some people hate mouth sounds and super up close to the mic, and this is gum chewing, so totally skip it if you don't like it, or if you don't like soft spoken. I'd say give it a go if the gum chewing doesn't bother you, because to me, I used to think that soft spoken was not for me. And one day I had a video downloaded on my phone that was soft spoken, and that was the only video I had for the night, and I absolutely loved it. And that was the Empress video about Kipling, if you remember. She was kind of messing with or scratching and doing some sounds with a candle, and that's my favorite video. I still have it downloaded, and just for me, listening to it, something about the calming and super soft spoken to the trick for me. Now, if you're still here, let's talk about Tammy. I read her name, but I didn't look up the pronunciation, but I'm gonna say Kingry. This is quite a recent case compared to other ones I covered. Kind of happened on the 20th of September 2014. At the time, Tammy was 37 years old, and she goes to work. She started to act very differently. She was very patient. She was calm, pleasant. She worked in a nursing home. She was a nurse herself. And that day, she was kind of not herself. She was loud. She was mad. Everything would upset her. She was not feeling well. She recently had been diagnosed with mild depression. But on top of that, her co-workers tested, I guess, her blood pressure 4 different times while at work, and it indicated very high. So they were trying to calm her down so the blood pressure would go down. She was still being agitated and loud. And eventually, she called her husband to go get her from work. She drove to work, but since she was not feeling very well, she asked her husband to come and pick her up. She got home, she started to get ready to take a nap, put on her pajamas, and hoped that by sleeping things would feel better. Her husband decides to take the kids out so the house would be quiet for her to sleep. A few hours later, her husband returns to an empty house. The door to the bedroom in which Tammy had been sleeping was open, and he found a note on the kitchen counter saying she left. It read, "Gone for a walk. Be back soon. Love you." That is when she disappeared. And never came back. She was living with her husband and 3 children: Caitlin, Cameron, and Carter. 2 of their children were teenagers, and the third one was still a toddler. Now, in the year 2001 was when Tammy graduated from nursing school, and she started to work in a nursing home. She was described as very responsible, reliable, and never missed a day of work. Eventually, she was diagnosed with this mild depression, and she started to call in sick. Her bosses didn't understand because she was extremely committed to her patients. She would even attend their funerals and give speeches about the kind of people that they were. But her depression seemed to be more than mild, affecting her home life. And if she, in fact, went to work that day, she would come back and go straight to bed. She experienced insomnia and was overall suffering because of this depression. However, Tammy was very close with her sisters, who were very worried about her mental health and how this was affecting her. So they were pushing her to go see a doctor. Mention over on Patreon. We have a new puppy. Well, my daughter is in high school. She usually goes to work with my husband, but today they left her. And if you hear some noises in the background, were toasted. I'm gonna have to stop this video because she's a loud puppy. So her sisters were worried, and they had a right to be, because Tammy, years before, tried to take her own life. This time she seemed to be better about it, or have a different attitude. You're gonna get over, I hope. It's okay. And she actually was making appointments. Actually, she had one the next day after she left work. She was a happy and upbeat person, as I mentioned before. So everyone was concerned about how she was feeling. Now, let me tell you about her relationship with her husband, Park. They met when she was only 19 years old, and they started having children soon after. They met at this drugstore that they both worked at, and according to her family and friends, she was very committed to her husband and to her family. So, going back to that day when Park got home, he just couldn't believe that she left. And what was more interesting is that she left a note. This was very unusual because when Tammy wanted to tell him something, anything really, she would send a text message. To make things worse, she left her purse, her cell phone, and her keys at the house. Now, she was going for a walk to, I assume, clear her head. And most people wouldn't take their purse. But most people would take their cell phones. Especially when you're a mom. When you want to, just let everyone know you're okay. A way to contact you. She also left her keys on the counter, but the house was locked up. I mean, it's possible to lock the door and just shut it as you leave, but it made no sense that Tammy would do that and leave her keys inside the house. He was very worried because of his wife's mental state at the time. He immediately was concerned for her safety, and these things didn't add up. So he instructed his son to look after his younger brother so he could go out and look for Tammy. He at first thought maybe she walked back to work to collect her car. So he went to the nursing home. Tammy was not there. Then he drove around the area for about an hour without finding her. At that point, he called his older daughter, Caitlin, who was sleeping over at a friend's house the previous night, and asked her to ask her friend to drive her around and see if they could find Tammy. You have to know that they lived in a rural area, and some people believe that a rural area means farmland, no trees or something like that, an open space. But really, living in the country sometimes means lots of trees. I know where I live is that way. And it was little devil, wake up. Oh no, she's awake. Anyways, because of these wooded areas, her family very worried, because she was not only going to be hard to spot and more roads would have to be covered, but also Tammy never shown any interest in walking in the woods. She knew they were tricky and that you could get easily lost. So it would have been weird for her to go into the woods, and she was not walking along the road. After they searched most of the area, Park returned home, and Caitlin met him there. Caitlin told her father that they were pretty sure they saw Tammy on the back of a motorcycle. This is very wild to throw out there, because she was wearing a helmet, so they couldn't see her face. But she said that lady had long blonde hair, and because of the body type, definitely looked like Tammy. They also said that they tried to follow the motorcycle, but were unable to keep up with it. A neighbor would later say they were sure they heard a motorcycle engine on the driveway of the Kingery home on the day that Tammy disappeared. Park started a search with volunteers. The first thing they looked into was the woods. They went around their home, And by 2 p.m., he decided to call the police to report his wife missing. Police look in the house. We're trying to see if there was any kind of forceful entry or foul play, but they found absolutely nothing. The search was at this point expanded and would include some scent dogs, helicopters, and hundreds of police officers, and a lot of volunteers who love Tammy and her family. Some people claim to have seen Tammy's in public days after her disappearance, but none of those sightings could be confirmed. About a week after Tammy disappeared, Park held another search of the woods. This time, they went deep into the area, and they got to a point where they can smell some kind of decomposing body. They found this shack, really, in a bag with the remains of a deceased dog. This was kind of odd. It was not related to Tammy's disappearance. Bark did still reported this to the authorities. The police searched this shack in the woods, but couldn't find anything to connect it to Tammy. One of the things that the police did initially was not to release information about Tammy. In particular, her depression. They didn't want to create false leads or lead people to make assumptions about why she disappeared. This, I think, was a smart decision, since some people would have assumed that Tammy had gone somewhere to take her own life and not be actively looking out for her. They also didn't want this narrative to be fed to her children, who were hoping that their mom would return home safely. As part of the investigation, police search of all Tammy's digital devices for any clues to her whereabouts. Something they did discover is that she had been texting two men, and they were referred to as romantic in nature. Police investigated these two guys, but they concluded that they had nothing to do with her disappearance. His messages, though, spark questions about the state of their marriage with Park. And Park had to admit that their relationship was strained and had been for many years. Apparently, Tammy was unfaithful once before, and that she even asked him for a divorce, but he refused, saying he wanted to work on their marriage. Park felt that Tammy only ever spoke about divorce when she was deeply depressed, and that when she'd come out of it, she made no mention of divorce. So he wanted to stick by Tammy and help her to work through her depression. That is why he was refusing to divorce. Police, of course, investigated Park, but found no evidence involving him in Tammy's disappearance. They also looked at the note, and in fact, she wrote it. So if she wrote the letter or the note and she left, that means that she wanted to leave, right? Or was she taken by somebody? Well, her case would remain quiet for 2 years. Park was unable to cope with one paycheck, I guess, and was forced to sell their home. He went into bankruptcy. He moved in with his parents. And there were no more reported sightings of Tammy. Park ended up withdrawing the reward money he offered for information on Tammy's whereabouts when he fell into this financial difficulties. Almost 2 years after Tammy Kingery disappeared, another woman went missing not far from the area. Calla Brown's case was slightly different. She vanished along with her boyfriend, Charlie Carver. Just 2 months later, 49-year-old Tracy Wright, who was driving pretty close to where both of Tammy and Callis with her boyfriend were vanished from. But this time, Tracy was driving on the 27th of October 2016. Both she and her car vanished without a trace. 3 weeks after Tracy vanishing with her car, police made a discovery that could link all 3 of these cases together. In November of 2016, Spartanburg County Police were at a property investigating an SEX crime when they heard banging coming from a metal shipping container. On opening the shipping container, they found Caleb around. She was severely dehydrated and she was restrained with chains. She reported that the owner of the property, Todd Caleb, took her and her boyfriend Charlie Carver in August of that year. She witnessed Caleb shot her boyfriend to death, and he kept her prisoner ever since. Police ended up finding his body, her boyfriend's body, and it was it was on the ground, like somewhere around in a shallow grave, and they arrested Caleb later that day. After his arrest, he pointed out another 2 grave sites on his property and told the police he was responsible for 4 murders in 2003 at a bike shop, where 4 staff members were gunned down. As details of his MO and area of operation began leaking to the public, the Missing Persons Advocacy Agency Missing Pieces Network soon started to question whether Caleb could have been responsible for the disappearances of Tammy Kingery and Tracy Wright as well. However, the 2 bodies on Todd's property were not Tammy's or Tracy's. They belonged to a couple named Megan and Johnny Coxey, who went missing in the year 2015. As Kala, I'm probably butchering his last name, went to trial, his true nature and the psychological profiling done on him revealed that he possibly had more than the 7 victims that police knew about. At the time of his arrest, this guy, Caleb, I'm gonna call him Todd, was 45 years old. He worked as a successful real estate agent and was very well liked. Todd was smart and his IQ was tested and it was at 118. Criminal profiler John Douglas, there's a party going on here, found Todd to be helpful in his analysis of himself, stating that the man, now convicted of 7 murders and technically a serial killer, was so intrigued by the peculiarities of his psyche, adding additional pages to Douglas's standard questionnaire, giving him more information. Now, let's talk about Todd. Now, Todd was born on March 7th, 1971 in Florida. His parents divorced when he was a toddler. At first, he lived with his mother and stepfather in South Carolina. But at the age of 12, he moved to Arizona to live with his father. While living in Arizona at the age of 15, he committed his first sex-motivated crime. He kidnapped a 14-year-old girl at gunpoint, held her hostage, and then raped her. He then threatened to get rid of her family before releasing her. This girl was so terrified, but ended up going to the police, and the police charged Todd with kidnapping and assault. And in the trial and investigation for that case, an array of skeletons fell out of the family closet. Apparently, Todd had experienced an extremely violent childhood in a dysfunctional family and exhibited violent behaviors from an early age. By the age of 9, he was admitted for psychiatric observation for the first time. The judge sentenced Todd to 15 years in an adult jail for his crimes. He served 14 and was released in the year 2001. Todd had to register as a sex offender and decided to move back to South Carolina. He earned 2 bachelor's degrees and then started working as a real estate agent. During his interview with John Douglas, he claimed there were 2 more victims police didn't know about. He didn't name the victims or gave locations for their bodies. That when he was interviewed, the details of the crimes were so specific that made them believe that it was true that he had 2 extra victims. This event wasn't the only time Todd has spoken about other victims. He also told Calla Brown, while he held her captive, that his victims were in the high double digits, being very proud of his achievement. He also said that to a reporter that interviewed him, and he kind of bragged about his private pilot's license that he earned in the year 2006. He said that because of this, he was able to hide the bodies so well that the police would never find them. He was not motivated, according to experts, by some kind of sex motivation, I guess. Despite some of his crimes having that element, he seemed to get rid of people out of retaliation for a perceived wrong, which is very dangerous. They found out that he had connections to all of his victims. He has been a customer of the bike shop at which he murdered 4 employees there. Calla Brown and her boyfriend had been at his property to do work for him, and he was known to the Coxey couple as well. All of these connections were so not relevant that the police would have never knocked on his door in an investigation. But this investigation was enough or close enough to pique a killer's interest. So what happened to Tammy Kingery? By now, her 2 older children are adult, and her youngest probably has some memories of his mom. Was very young when she disappeared. So one of the theories is that she did this to herself. She tried to do that when she started to struggle with depression. She was on medication. So many believe that she was trying to harm herself. Others say that she would never do that to her children, which in my mind makes no sense, because mental illness really doesn't follow guidelines of love. Some would argue that love can heal depression, but in some cases, the person doing this to themselves really feel like they are a burden and like they are doing their family a favor because they're not good enough for them. But the nature of depression sometimes won't let you see it. So we do know that she loved her children and she would never try to hurt them. But the truth is, she didn't have to mean to hurt them. Depression really changes your perspective and makes you feel in a way that you think other people are feeling a certain way about you. However, her behavior that day was not really typical for depression. It kind of showed an angry Tammy. Some even mentioned that she could have been bipolar, which, if you suffer from it or if you know about it, you go through cycles between depression and manic episodes at times. They also are known, people with bipolar disorder are known to take risky or adopt risky behaviors, like it would explain in Tammy's case her infidelity with this several man that she was talking to on her phone. So it is possible that if she in fact had a bipolar disorder, that after a manic episode, she cycled into a deep depression and decided to do something about it and take her own life. This theory would explain why she left everything at home and locked the door behind her. However, there's no body, there's no proof, and people that do this tend not to hide their bodies. They sometimes do it in their own homes, knowing that their family will find them. Now, according to the psychologist, this is not because they want to do harm or traumatize their family, but it is part of the process that a person in that state goes through. So, if people know, but people theorize that she went into the woods to do it. But according to experts, it is more likely that she would have done it in the first spot that she found and not go into the woods or deeper into the woods. Some other people believe that she actually left with the guy that she was having an affair with and started a new life. And it's said that in today's world, it's difficult to stay completely off the radar unless you have someone who's supporting you financially. Her family say that she would have never done it, that she loved her children too much to do that to them. She would have known the financial perspective or what they would have to go through without her job, income. And she would have known how much he would struggle to support their children by himself. So even with this mental illness, family and friends don't believe that she'd be able to watch them suffer like that. It is also said that if she was suffering from this bipolar disorder, that this could have impacted her in a way that she believed that leaving the house and starting a new life was the best thing she could do. She would very likely have some kind of contact, however, with authorities at some point. So this seems very unlikely. And then there is foul play. There's two theories in this. Number one, Tammy was taken by a person known or unknown to her by force. And number two, she left the house by her own free will and something went wrong after that. Police found no evidence of forced entry or a struggle in the house. The scent dogs could not pick up her scent outside the house, which indicates she did not leave on foot. And if she were taken by someone from her home and forced to write the note, handwriting specialists would have picked up from some variation in her writing style. Imagine if someone is holding a weapon at you and asking you to write this note. Chances are there would be some kind of a mistake. You write the wrong letter, you write differently in a hurry, but she didn't. This was her normal handwriting. So if Tammy left the home of her own free will, maybe with someone that she knew, it would be possible that she left her phone and keys there. But why would she leave her money or purse? Maybe she just wanted to go out for a walk with this person for not long. She was talking to these guys on her phone. And even though they were investigated, a third man could be a strong possibility. Even though there are no messages to a third man. Also, neighbors reporting hearing a loud engine in Tammy's driveway, and her friend, with a daughter saying that they saw her on a motorcycle with a guy. So maybe Tammy's boyfriend had a motorcycle, and in that state, she asked him to pick her up and go for a drive. Maybe she had the intentions to come back. Or maybe she was involved somehow in some way with Todd, one we talked about previously. You have to know that Todd's property was within an hour's drive of Tammy's home. He was a real estate agent and likely worked all over the county. Actually, Spartanburg and McCormick counties. He was an attractive man. He was 42 years old. Maybe she saw him as a potential partner. He was a customer at a motorcycle shop, the one that he committed for murders in 2003. Customers of motorcycle shops kind of ties you with the idea that you probably own a motorcycle. He actually had one in 2003, but there were none reported or registered in his name in 2014. So it is possible that Todd picked up Tammy that day on his motorcycle. Maybe she even asked to be picked up. Maybe she wanted to go for a ride and clear her head, and that's why she wrote that note. Maybe in that state she said that she wanted to be with him, Maybe he took her back to his house and I don't know, maybe she got there and then realized she wanted to go home. And since she rejected him, maybe he got rid of her. And that's why, after the big search, maybe that's why he decided to put her in his plane and take it to a place where her body could be disposed. There's absolutely no proof of that, but that's one of the theories surrounding this case. It's really hard, I think, to understand that sometimes we'll never learn what happened in these cases. But as you know, some cases do get solved. And even when they're years and years old. This is a true mystery, an unsolved mystery, but I believe that maybe in 2021 or in years to come, something could help us solve some of these cases that are not too old. That will come up with something that will help us give closure to this family. It happens. People pick up and leave and start new lives. But more often than not, that people don't vanish. They move on with another partner. They start a new life. Some of them leave their kids. But they don't disappear from the face of the earth. So this case is very odd, in my opinion, for a woman that wanted to leave her husband, that was also depressed and possibly bipolar. But all these things just add to theories because we really don't know what could have prompted her. All we know is that she did leave that house, more than likely willingly, and she got into some kind of vehicle because she did not go out for a walk. What happened after that? It's absolutely mind-boggling to think that nobody had said something about it. I saw her here, I saw her there, she got on a bike, this was what it looked like. And if Todd, in fact, was the one who went to pick her up because he had the bike, because he knew her, and then felt rejected and got rid of her, why isn't he saying something? It's not like they're not gonna offer something in exchange for his confession. This is definitely one of those cases that is very out there, and it left me with all those questions and more. Let me know what you think. Again, we covered the mental illness, some of the things that people suffering from them go through in their minds, their idea that if they're not there, they will make their lives easier for his or her family. The idea that they're a problem for the family, and how that's just part of the illness, part of the state of mind that some people go through. So, no, they're not selfish. No, they're not cowards. Most of these people that in some cases do that to themselves, they're in a different state of mind. And I can tell you from experience, that does not make it easier as a family member or as a friend to go through it. You know something is not right. You know that they didn't do it with a purpose of hurting anybody. Yet, I know some kids that had to go through that really resent the person that did it. Because it's hard to understand from the outside perspective. It's another, it's a theme for another video, and for somebody who has the experience and the training for it. But it's definitely something that needed to be touched in this case. Let me know what you think in the comments down below. Thank you so much for watching, for being here one more time. I had to ditch the gum after a while because it was like soft and disgusting. But let me know what you thought about soft spoken and gum chewing. I'll talk to you guys next time. Thank you for being here.